Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Giving Tuesday is all about celebrating generosity, and Boise State Public Radio needs your help in giving back. Nominate your favorite local nonprofit for a chance to win $1,000 in on-air messaging. Over the years, your response and enthusiasm has made this a special tradition and opportunity to lift up other organizations. Learn more and nominate your favorite nonprofit by visiting boisestatepublicradio.org before Tuesday, December 2nd.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. More Idaho Matters right now. If you've ever felt like there just aren't enough hours in the day between work and family and just everything else, our next guest says there is a better way to live. Erin Coop is a performance strategist, a speaker, and now author of the new book, I Can Fit That In: How Rituals Transform Your Life. Now, the book explores how simple, intentional rituals can help us reclaim our time, boost our mental clarity, and actually help us enjoy the lives that we're building. And Erin is joining us now to talk more. Erin, really nice to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I just want to start with the title itself, I Can Fit That In. What does that phrase mean to you, and what inspired you to write this book?
So, that phrase is, it's so important because if you look at the cover of the book, what you see is a Luna moth with some scissors inside and a shadow of scissors behind the Luna moth. I can fit that in is not just a mantra. It's literally how I changed my entire mindset around fitting in the things that actually matter to me. Prior to starting to tell myself I can fit that in, I would always say, I don't have time. I don't have time for myself. I only have time for everything and everyone and all the obligations and demands and pulls on my energy and my time. But once I started to say I can fit in something that matters each day, I can fit in this thing because it's really important to me or it adds value to my life, it also helped me start to remove the things that didn't matter, the things that drained me, and to cut out those things that were just so distracting and not adding any value. So that's really the whole point of I Can Fit That In, not to do more, but to choose better.
You know, you've had a really impressive corporate career before you started diving into human performance and mindset work. Was there a turning point that made you realize just something had to change?
Oh, absolutely. I was one of those people for a long time that was very good at a couple of things. One, self-sabotage. So I thought,
Mm.
geez, my life is great on paper, but it can never be too good. I would find a way to break it down. I would find a way to tear myself down. And secondly, I was very good at pointing the finger at other people or situations that were the reasons I felt the way I did. Now, in reality, what that was just resentment, and it was leaking out sideways. It was leaking out towards my husband. It was leaking out towards motherhood, towards, the client that I didn't really want to work with, towards coworkers. I mean, all kinds of things. I always thought the grass must be greener elsewhere. And it was really taking ownership and responsibility over how I feel in my own life.
Mm.
And the fact that that's my responsibility, that's my issue to handle. It's no one else's, and it's no one else's problem. And when I realized that, I thought, gosh, I can empower myself to live each day as if it actually is fulfilling and not a drain or a nuisance.
So I want to talk about the word ritual because also on the cover of the book, people should know that it says how rituals transform your life. However, it actually says how routines, and you scratch that out and put the word ritual in there instead. Now, some people might think, okay, the word ritual seems a little spiritual, maybe a little rigid, but can you describe what you mean by that? Because, in your words, it can actually be freeing. So, how do you define a ritual in the context maybe of daily life?
Yes. And I think, it's a really important distinction. I'm glad you pointed that out so people understand that. What I do in the book is talk about routines and rituals in a way where I am helping people understand that routines are those automatic, autopilot things that we do every day without any critical thinking or any intention. Rituals, on the other hand, while people may think historically they're spiritual in nature, the way that I talk about them is that they're strategic levers that you pull on personally to connect more with yourself, to connect more with others, and to connect more with life. So, an
Mm.
intentional ritual is something as simple as in the morning, do you grab your phone before you make your coffee or tea? Or do you make your coffee or tea and actually set an intention for how you want your day to feel? That is something so simple, and it's actually very mindful, not mindless. And it can literally change how you feel throughout the rest of your day. A ritual could be something like you have a dance party with your children every evening or on Saturdays. It could be something like you go for a walk with a friend once a week. It could be something like there's a certain book that you're reading and it is really uplifting for you. And it's a book that you're putting into practice in your life. It could be cooking with your partner or your spouse. I mean, rituals do not have definitions as far as what time of day, how often, what parameters are around them. They're not obligations. So they don't have to be something that is a check the box scenario, whereas a routine oftentimes is, like I said, that obligatory thing that you have to do. And if you don't do it, you feel like a failure. And so I'm
Mm.
helping people shift their mindset around what are routines and what are rituals. And rituals help them reduce exhaustion. It helps them increase presence and then, enhance their capacity for more energy in their lives so they can give focus and attention where they actually want to.
So, in your opinion, what is the biggest misconception people have about creating these habits or rituals?
Mm. I would say a big misconception is this concept of busyness, right? Like we all do this. We fall into busyness
Mhm.
traps. There's no such thing as perfection, and that is absolutely never the goal with any of this work. And, my life is far from perfect. But what I do know to be true from lived experience is that when I constantly told myself that I was so busy, you better bet that I found a way to constantly stay busy. Now, was that always productive? Absolutely not. I could Netflix my way into every night in bed. I could grab my phone in the morning and immediately be distracted by the million and one things going on in the world and in my inbox. It wasn't like I was prioritizing my energy in a meaningful way. And that is the trap of busyness, right? We're not being focused and intentional on how we want to spend our energy. And I talk about energy stewardship is the new time management, right? Like we all know productivity hacks and habit stacking, while it might work for a little while, it's not truly sustainable. So, what I want people to understand is you can actually build a more sustainable way of fulfillment and a way of being that not only connects you to meaning and to yourself more deeply, but that doesn't make you feel so drained and burned out or
Mhm.
exhausted at the end of the day or end of the week.
Okay, so there are people listening right now who are going to be thinking, "Okay, now it's just one more thing that I've got to put on my to-do list, right? Now I've got to figure out these rituals." So, how can someone realistically just start adding a ritual without it feeling, like it's another thing on that to-do list to just check off?
Yes, and that's an important notion because what this is not about is doing more. It's about choosing differently. And something as simple as just your intention to choose differently is enough. A lot of what I talk about in the book, it is purposely not prescriptive narrative. So I'm not saying, take two of these and call me in the morning, you're going to be a different person. Like that just
Mhm.
that's snake oil, right? It doesn't work. And what I also don't want is for people to think this is about adding 15 things to their to-do list. What it's about is moment to moment, where do you feel like you are not choosing yourself or meeting your own needs? That is typically
Mm.
where people fill their void or their emptiness. Or for me, I describe it as this hollowness that I felt internally. That is typically where people are going to fill that space with other things that are those to do list items. It's just that stuff they got to check off to make themselves feel a little bit more accomplished that day. But that accomplishment is meaningless. And so it doesn't actually move the needle within yourself or in your life. And so, for example, one of the things that I do, and I have a lot of clients do this, is just even breathe more deeply. And I know that sounds really cliche and like almost too easy, but most of us are breathing only into our chest and not down into our bellies. And what that does is symbolizes to our brain and signals to our brain, hey, I'm under stress. Can you help me out? And what does your brain do? It starts thinking more stressful thoughts. So something as simple as, hey, I just got off this, this Zoom call and, now I have to jump straight into my inbox. Let me just breathe a little bit more deeply for a couple of minutes. You're not stopping what you're doing. You're not slowing down what you're doing. You're just being a little bit more intentional because you're going to breathe anyways. I mean, we're already doing that. So why not do it more intentionally? And that is something so easy that anyone could do. And it is a way of ritualizing a breath without actually having to do something more.
hmm it's interesting. In the book, you talk about aligning rituals with your own values and your purpose. And when I think about my own life, I think I've actually been very good at finding time for myself. And one of the things is exercise. That's always been something very important to me. And
Mhm.
I do prioritize that. I mean, and it can be simple, like I go for a walk or I yoga, whatever it is, but I really have always taken time for that. What I find interesting is that, and I don't know if maybe this is, being female. When I was younger, because I put like intentionality around my own physical and mental health as a priority, it was almost seen as being selfish, right? That
Mhm.
that that how could I prioritize that over everything else? Now, as I've gotten older, I mean, I don't care what anybody thinks at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also think it's interesting to me that we are now living in a space where we have to switch that narrative, right? I think so many women have
Yes.
been raised with this idea that if you prioritize yourself, then that means you're selfish. That means you're not a good mom. That means you're not a good partner. And I would argue that it's the exact opposite.
100%. I absolutely agree. And yes, you're right. We have been taught as a society, and I think was just a form of suppression for a long time. We are taught that selfishness is meeting your own needs. If you meet your needs, if you put yourself first, that means you're putting everyone else last, and how dare you, right?
Mhm,
When in reality,
mhm,
what selfishness actually is expecting someone else to live their life according to exactly the script that you live yours by. Why would we, if you put your ideals onto someone else, of course that's going to seem selfish, but that is not right. But you taking care of you are filling yourself up, you're giving yourself more energy and more fuel so that you actually have more in the tank to give to others. You're far better off, especially as a mother or a colleague, someone running a project, a leader, you name it. You're far better off to fill yourself up so that you can be more productive and also be in a better mindset, a better mood, have a better demeanor, and treat people better because you're treating you better. And I, for one, I agree with you. Exercise for me actually used to be something that I would tell myself I'm too busy for. And then it
mhm.
was it was such a mind game, right? Because it'd be like, oh, I don't actually have time to fit in the workout that I want to fit in. And so because I can't, that means I am a martyr now because now I'm saying to everyone around me, you're the reason that I can't put, exercise into my day, that I can't fit that in. When that is just so ridiculous, right? It's like, no, that's
Mhm.
on me. I have to make that choice. And when I make that choice to empower myself to say I can fit that in because it matters to me and it makes me feel good, you better bet I'm going to show up a more whole, a more lively, a more vibrant person for everyone that I'm serving and taking care of.
What surprised you the most when you were researching and writing this book? I mean, was there like this aha moment or something where like, oh gosh, I hadn't thought about this before?
One of the things I would say surprised me the most is all of this inner work that I had done on myself. I thought that I had healed so many parts of me that were, sort of stuck in my subconscious mind. And we're like onions as human beings. We have so many layers, and we're never fully at that time or that space of enlightenment. And it's why I talk so practically about this stuff, because that is not the goal. The goal is we each deserve to move through our lives and to navigate our daily lives in a way that feels good to us, right? In a way that is uplifting to us, is empowering, and, ultimately feels fulfilling. And I had told myself for so long, one of the big questions that I first asked was, why do I believe that we're supposed to just grind it out and be exhausted every day, drained every day, to the point that we wake up at 65 and say, okay, now I can retire and now I can live my life? Like, I don't believe that that is what we are actually here to do as human beings. So why was it a part of my existence, and why was it a part of the way that I behaved? And one of those realizations I had in doing the research and really digging deep into myself to write this book is that, I had this story or this script around my own father's life, and he was terminally ill since he was 45. So that was when I was 5 years old. And he had a horrible quality of life, 35 pills a day minimum, just to stay alive for 13 years until he passed. And so what I didn't realize is that a lot of that story and that script in my own subconscious mind was still within me as I was making new choices in my life. And so I had to share a lot of that. And I put a lot of that in the introduction of the book. And I refer to it in the book, in other chapters, because it was really an important part of helping people understand that none of this is about how do we live in a way that is idealized or, in a way that they do in the movies. This is about everyday life. We all have scripts and patterns and stories that are a part of us, but we can all overcome those things that hold us back and weigh us down and live more intentionally.
Well, Erin, I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. Really appreciate the conversation. We've been speaking with Erin Coop. She's author of the new book, I Can Fit That In. You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
Hey, I'm Peter Pruitt from Zoo Idaho.
And I'm Dr. Leif Tapinola with the Idaho Museum of Natural History.
Together we host The Nature of Idaho, a podcast all about how our state's amazing landscapes, wildlife, and geology shape life here in the Gem State.
Each week we dive into nature stories from across Idaho, everything from fossils to forests, and sometimes even a few fun facts you can share on your next hike.
So join us as we celebrate everything that makes wild Idaho special.
Listen to The Nature of Idaho from KISU, wherever you get your podcasts, or at KISU.org.